Hey everyone, welcome to another video on the JayBee
Hey.
and Milly channel. Today we're going to be doing another one of our Scooby top 10s, and this time it is going to be our top 10 moments from Scooby Doo the movie from 2002. So we have made no secret of the fact that this is literally like JayBee's childhood in essence. Like I'm going to
My
say in
innocence. Oh, I was
essence,
gonna
it's certainly
say
no
it's
innocence.
my opposite of
Um,
innocence.
and ultimately, I'm going to say his favourite movie as well. And it certainly was a big part of my childhood too, although certainly not to the extent it was JB's. However, we'll get into what mine was a little bit later, and maybe the top 10 for that. But for now, we're going to go over our top 10 moments from this movie. Now, JB will have his elaborate criteria. Mine honestly kind of seemed to turn into oh, that was a good line. Oh, I love that line, and was almost on the verge of heading into top 10 scriptings for this movie, but ultimately clawed it back and tried to stay within what I think would be the confines of JB's criteria.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. I think one thing that people don't really understand is that a good 75% of the stuff that I say in the reviews is more of an exaggerated version of myself and my character. It's more of a shtick, if anything. So there's not going to be that version of me in this video today, unfortunately, for some people. So it's just going to be me being myself. And so to that end, my criteria is literally one of two. It's one, how much it resonated with me back then compared to now. So what's kind of aged the best, and also which one gets me the most pumped up. So basically, just how much I enjoy a scene. It's as simple as you can get with this one.
Perfect, great. And so with that in mind, let's kick us off with, of course, I guess I should explain. We're doing my top 5 and JB's top 5. So ultimately, it should equal a top 10 unless there's the rare instance where we agree on something. So
I will say that I do have three honorable mentions. So even if we don't, even if we have the same by some miraculous reason, there's going to be some bonus
yeah.
mentions there as well.
Okay, I've got honorable mentions too. So we're kicking off with number 5. And for me, fifth place is, and this is fifth place is by no means my least favorite. Fifth place means it's good enough to make it into the top 5. And for me, that would be the scene with the chicken sacrifice in the Voodoo Man's house.
Ah,
I kind of like how him and Daphne are a little bit sassy with each other. It's amusing me. Like, I was always drawn to comedy, and I've always been entertained with it, that scene where he's like, it's not alive, and he's like, how do you figure that out? Or like when it didn't have a head and stuff like that. And I just used to laugh so much at that scene. And then also because like Daphne's supposed to be like such a fashionista, and he's like, purple's a fall color, it's the middle of May, kind of like calling her out on her fashion choices and stuff like that as well. Like just the back and forth between them in that bit, I enjoy it a lot.
that was crazy. That was my number five as well.
Okay, this is not getting off to a good start. Explain your reasoning.
It's just the reverse psychology attempt of it all. It's just so funny seeing Daphne's thought process. Like,
Just like you didn't want me to.
and after speaking again, there's going to be some bias here from my point of view personally, given that now that I know a bit more about how that scene was filmed after speaking with Miguel, the fact that a lot of his lines were improvised and she was doing really well to keep up with that level of things. And just the fact that they really didn't need to add in him with so much, that they could have really taken from Where Are You and made him a complete creep or an obvious villain to throw people off the scent, but they just let him run with it, and we got a character with so much charisma, and of course Daphne being her new sleuthing self really takes it upon herself to genuinely find one of the most important locations for the mystery.
Now, I think it's worthwhile mentioning here because I did consider this beforehand. As JB said, we know a lot about this movie through the interviews we've done that didn't make it into the final cut. We all know about the Gosnell cut and all that kind of thing. And ultimately, we've almost unearthed what that full thing would have been like, certainly filling in some of the gaps there. And ultimately, I will admit, there would have been a lot of scenes I think that would have made it into my top 5 that were cut. Like, there's a certain Daphne and Fred scene where, like we say, if we're going for comedy, would have been in the top
There's
3
even
at
a scene
least.
with this in the bonus features that wasn't shot or anything, but it was in the scripting, where the Arnuki beast would have come to life and started fighting some of the possessed people. Like, and that's how Miguel's character is never actually possessed. So that's amazing. I'll leave a link. We've done about 12 interviews and one on the way for the 2002 movie.
Ooh.
that I'll leave in the description.
Okay, so I feel like now we've kind of gone over that criteria. We're going to move on to our fourth place. And for me, and I feel like some people are going to be horrified this isn't higher, and JayBee, you can't have agreed with me on the placing of this.
Well,
I refuse that you can't. And that is the Spooky Island ride, when it kind of takes over the gang. You know, Daphne's on the kind of ride.
yeah.
You get pinned to the wall. Daphne and Fred and Velma have to like throw books around, and you know, kind of there's a swinging things. I don't know if that's too much to put down to favorite moments. Just kind of Spooky Island coming to life.
No, it's an important moment because it's when isn't that pretty much when that Crookshanks guy, that is his name, right? I know people were given his name. Not Luke, is it Luke? No, that's Fred. It's something Crookshanks. I don't know the politically correct term. The smaller gentleman, when that villain presses the button and you get the wall of meat coming to life, the roller coaster, and the singing jesters. That's a great moment. That's a great moment.
I mean, I think ultimately, if I had to choose one moment within that scene, it'd be the wall of me, just Shaggy and Scooby kind of getting caught up in the moment and coming at each other a little bit.
Gosh, I didn't realize it made you that emotional. I mean, this movie in itself, I mean, let's be honest, right? Every single frame of this movie, realistically for me, is a top 5. But that's not the game we're playing today, you know. It's not the game. I respect that a lot.
So your fault?
And in fact, that was on my list, and I've lost it. Like, I guess I must have removed it in favor of other stuff. That's crazy. But my number 4, and I think you're gonna think that this is a lie, but it's not. It's the opening scene with the Lunar ghost.
No, I completely know why that's your favorite scene.
Well,
I wouldn't worry about it.
No, well, obviously, it's a scene that changed my life for the better. You know, I think I'll have some grandkids that will thank me for that scene, or that will thank the makers for that scene. We'll have to give them like Peter Crosman, Bill Bose's phone number to thank them up. But regardless, I like, and I'm not saying that I was a big fan of Where Are You? And in fact, I don't even see people thinking, and even the filmmakers have said this, so maybe they won't thank me for saying this. I don't even think that this is necessarily a huge nod to Where Are You the way some people speak about it as. I just think it's the most formulaic way to introduce this version of the guy that ultimately does do the tropes of the unmasking, the trap setting, things going wrong. But I do think it updates it enough to be its own thing. So I'm not watching this thinking, oh, this is just like Where Are You? I'm going, no, this is how this gang will deal with things. And you can almost fill in the gaps on eventually why they ended up making the decision they did at the end. And the Lunar Ghost themselves is such a well-designed villain that I think they should be commended for the whole design of it. It's just a great scene. And the skateboard as well, like,
with the barrel, yeah, it was a fantastic scene. It was performed really well. So we're now moving on to the top 3, and for me in third place, and I don't think you'll believe this made it into my top 5. I don't think you expected this to be in my top 5, but there's something about the delivery of a certain line, and I love it. So for me, until this stage, Scooby wasn't exactly flying the feminist flag. I had a few issues with a few of the episodes we've reviewed, not been fully up to date, but been of its time, so it's perfectly understandable. That's just as is. However, for me, as a young girl, seeing the moment when Daphne says, "Now who's the damsel in distress," it added to my life a bit.
Yeah, well, you know, hey. I love all the women stuff. It's just fantastic. And you know, I think some of the most iconic movies, and I think both of our childhoods, at least for me, I can think about 3 of my favorite movies of all time were all about that strong woman thing. Not like Captain Marvel, which I'm sad to say is a bit too, you know, perfect woman, as in she's not scared of anything, she's not afraid of anything, she's got no weaknesses, she's just there. When I think about my childhood, I think of Daphne and I think of Chihiro from Spirited Away and Coraline, you know, all women that have a lot of flaws and go through struggles, but ultimately rise above them.
Do you know what? You know, now I've said it and we've spoken about it, I want to make it my second place.
Oh, really?
Can I swap?
Yeah.
Okay.
So do you want me to do third and then?
So if I do my third and then confirm that as my second.
Yeah.
And if you can do, I'm swapping it with my second place one, and for me, The second place one is, kind of where they're setting the trap, like it's the first time they've worked together.
Oh yeah.
Really. Just that kind of montage where, you've got Daphne smiling at Fred.
Okay, all right, I'm
Yeah.
going. Oh yeah.
I really like, how you see them pull the skull up that you saw at the start of the movies. It's kind of calling back to that. Yeah, that doesn't deserve second place. That's third place. And second place, like I said, because it was like I don't know, like I've never identified as a feminist or even somebody that's been too upset when things aren't exactly in favor of females are said. However, that moment just did something that I would say hasn't really happened since. I just remember being a little girl, just watching it and being like, I want to be her.
Oh, I wanted to be her as well.
No, like just like I don't know, just so that confidence,
I'd
that
go,
stuffiness. Like
hey.
I liked it a lot.
It is great, and they do it amazingly. The whole 2002 is where Daphne's moment. We had Grey in What's New. We had Daphne, as Gellar in this movie. It was a great year for Daphne. Maybe we've not had a year for Daphne quite like that, but it's amazing. So that's your third and second, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So my third is the Spooky Island reveal because I think first impressions are important, and I don't think the Spooky Island setting would have had such an impact if it wasn't for Land of a Million Drums playing. Well, we get that pan up from the transition from the plane to running up the water, and then the combination of panning up to that theme park where you heard Rowan Atkinson's commentary, "Welcome to Spooky Island," like.
Yeah.
That everything for that scene was perfect, and it introduced Spooky Island in the best way. I think they could have done it a bit better in terms of cinematic nowadays, in that it would have zoomed in maybe on some people on an elaborate ride that was decorated like the Jester, maybe some imaginative roller coasters, something like that. But ultimately, I think they couldn't have done it better for the time, and maybe even showing the rides would have been overkill. Yeah, it could have been overkill.
I think made now it wouldn't be as good because it'd be too much.
So, yeah, that whole reveal is just magical.
It is.
Am I doing my second?
You are.
I'm tempted to switch this up to my first, but I can't. It's the final battle. So the second the rock version of the Scooby Doo Where Are You theme tune plays, from that until I think Mary Jane pins Shaggy and Scooby up against the wall. I mean, obviously there's the Daphne scene at the end, but just the way you feel through that whole musical scene, because it's like everything happens at once. You get Scrappy on his rampage. It's when Daphne first starts fighting Zarkos, like, and then there's Fred, like, with his kind of whip thing. Oh man, that scene is just crazy. In fact, look, I've said this. I think it was on the podcast, and this is what I do mean, and I don't think that I meant it. The final scene in Endgame, I don't think tops the final scene in 2002. I think only one movie has come close, and it was in the latest Spider-Man. I'm not comfortable spoiling that fully, so I'm not going to, but maybe that comes close.
I'm never going to forget being sat in, obviously, like you say, we're not going to do spoilers, but I'm never going to forget being sat in the cinema for that Spider-Man movie. I can't believe the shrieks around me.
But here's the thing, the Endgame cost like $1 billion to make, and I think that this 2002 final battle scene topped it like 20 years ago on, I think, a quarter of the budget. So that's
less than a quarter of the budget.
Oh.
Okay, so with that, we're coming up to first place. But before we get there, of course, there was lots of, moments that could have made it into the top 5, the top 10 even. For me, where they're kind of switching between characters, it just showed how well they acted, when they're trying to return the souls to the body. Just showed the kind of quality of the actors that they had, because ultimately all were really believable. I mean, like I said, I was kind of drawn to certain parts of the script as well for this. So like the Don Knotts Christmas party thing was always hilarious. I really enjoyed the plane scene, Grandma coming into the airport. All could have really easily made it into the top 10.
I want to watch it
but
now.
For me, it's something like really simple. And then that's, when like Shaggy's like friends don't quit and then jumps like into the hole to save Scooby. Genuinely really wholesome. And that's his line, isn't it? Friends don't quit.
Yeah, friends don't
Which
quit.
is what he says right at the beginning. to Scooby as the rest of the gang walk away. And just that link, I love it. I think it's like, oh, you're gonna hate me using this word. I think it's genuinely like the most wholesome thing ever.
Well, yeah, I think that somehow miraculously has become the vibe of a lot of this list, and yeah,
Like for me, I think definitely my top two are exactly what I'd want them to be, which is the Daphne kind of female power moment, because genuinely, as a young impressionable female, that influenced me a lot. It did. It kind of gave me something I wanted to aim towards, like that level of confidence and everything. And then and the other one, just Shaggy saying friends don't quit and like jumping in after
I love
Scooby.
that.
It's just the kind of like love that you want to have between people, no? Like he doesn't have a clue where he's going, but he jumps in anyway. And it's just the epitome of their relationship. It is the sweetest thing. And Fuller just been fighting. Like it honestly shows that, and people can hate me for this or whatever, but like there's no franchise without Scooby and Shaggy. For me, they're the heart. And for me, this is going on a complete tangent, but when we reviewed the Daphne and Velma movie, I said I felt like it was Scooby Doo with its heart ripped out, and Shaggy and Scooby went there.
Yeah. So I don't think, again, this isn't popular, but I don't think it's necessary. But if you're gonna do Scooby Doo, you can't do. I don't think that I can accept any version, right? I can accept a version robot Scooby. I can accept the new Black Shaggy that they're gonna do. Any single thing I can accept. But if they try and make like Shaggy and Scooby enemies, then I think that's where it doesn't work. You know, I think you're right. It's the heart of what makes them who they are, and I like it. I like it a lot. So here's my honorable mentions. Now I'll try and be quick because
I'm a celebrity.
I don't want to miss the former health secretary making a complete tit of himself. So
I'm sorry, the American audience, this has just gone over their heads.
my honorable mentions: Fred and Daphne's kiss. Because one, I'm a big not Shapney. Is it Frapney?
No, I'm full on there for Shapney.
Well, Frapney and
full on there for Shapney. Mystery Incorporated did it well.
And here's the thing, like Frapney is amazing, but the fact that these two were engaged at the time and now they're still married 20 years later. Like my sister got married last year and she's like divorced. So
didn't make it 20 days later.
The fact that these two were together like 20 years, that's mad. That's mad. And then my other honorable mention is the sing-song scene with Sugar Ray, because I like how it starts off as being some innocent party thing, like you can expect from Spooky Island, but then there's that hint of something more sinister, and it was one of the first moments as a child that I remember being spooked. And my other honorable mention is the training tape. Now, this doesn't make it onto the top 5 because it is purely a scene that you can clip out of context and go, if you want to know what happened movie-wise in the early 2000s that absolutely would never happen now, it's this. Like the fact that we had someone go, no big whoop dog, hey, did you catch that new vid on the box? That's a foreign language to team, generation TikTok now. So it's crazy. But my number one favorite moment of all time is Shaggy's speech to Scooby before the sacrifice, because I think every time I cry, every time, because the way that Matthew Lillard expertly manages to act to thin air, or I guess Leon holding some crystal ball, and Neil Fanning, his voice was equally emotional in that scene. The David Newman's score kind of ramps it up. The editing is so that everything's slowed down. Just what that scene onward, I think it's when he first speaks to him when he's on the way to the pincer machine. From that scene until the kind of soul thing with Scooby. Oh,
I'm gonna make a bold statement here. I like doing this. I think this movie wouldn't be where it is now, 20 years later, still been watched, still been celebrated, and still been sold in a lot of stores. Like our local Tesco's used to sell it still.
HMV.
I'm gonna say that movie wouldn't be where it is without Matthew Lillard. No. And Scooby wouldn't be where it is now without Matthew Lillard. I can see that you're willing to disagree, and it's a bold statement. I'm not saying Scooby wouldn't be successful now, and I'm not saying this movie wouldn't have been successful in its own right. But for me, the chemistry between, like you said, Matthew Lillard acting to thin air, the fight scene, the scene that makes you cry, like he is a phenomenal actor. And I don't think that had ever really fully been noted to what extent prior to this.
It's underrated as well, though.
And not only that, but like now revisiting Scooby, like I hated Return to Zombie Island. I did. But the one thing that made it good was Matthew Lillard's voice. There were certain things he did in Return to Zombie Island where I was like, okay, hating this movie, but your voice acting's incredible. Like, I just think there's so many good things that Matthew Lillard has brought to Scooby that, of course, no one's gonna compare to Frank Welker. He is like Father Scooby. Like, no one's ever gonna call that into question. But I'd say following him in terms of contribution, Matthew Lillard's kind of my second place.
It's difficult to disagree with that, but again, I think that's a whole topic for another time. It's not
It is. I'm sorry, I've gone on a
and it's
tangent.
not something that I can get into now. But that is our top 10 moments from Scooby Doo 2002. I do want to challenge myself at some point to do a top, like a bottom 10, just because I love the movie so much. But we will see. Thank you so much for watching. If there's issues with the audio, they will be fixed soon. So yeah, please like, comment, and subscribe.
JayBee and Milly.